Welcome, everybody. Lori Harris, your host today with Maximize Excellence. And I'm pretty honored today to have one of our partners on our podcast today with us. And we've got CD Hoopster Morgan on today with us. Very excited. A little bit about Hoop. He is the founder and chairman of the Forté Institute. And the Forté Institute is a global behavioral science firm best known for developing and providing innovative people, process, and interpersonal performance improvement solutions. Hoop is the author of his recent new book. Here we go. Communication Intelligence. You can see it's well read and well studied. Yes, over here. And he's also the developer of the proprietary Forté communication style profile, which we're going to dive into some of that today and talk about. And this profile, this tool, this science has been used by more than 6 million individuals and over 6,000 organizations worldwide. So if you would, our conversation today is going to be all about Forté communication intelligence, and we're pretty darn excited to talk to Hoop about this today. And you'll get to know him. You'll get to know about Forté. You'll get to know what communication intelligence really is. And the reason why we're talking about this, and Hoop makes note of this on his platforms and his website. When you look at low efficiency, lack of clarity, and poor progress in the workplace, what do you always find? Well, it is the lack of effective interpersonal communications. And with that, everybody, please welcome Hoop Morgan.
Well, Lori, thank you very much for that intro. The fun thing about Forté is it's about strengths. And so we have the opportunity to help, learn who we are, and the self-awareness has got to be there before you have situational awareness. Now, the Forté adapting profile gets into situational awareness, and then page 9 of the report, guess what? Here's what to do about it to get your message across. So we're able to update the information as often as every 30 days. Life goes on. And likewise, Forté is honored to be a partner with you all. I always look forward to talking with Lori and Lynn because I'm going to learn a lot in a short amount of time. It is taking notes, going through 2 or 3 pencils in one session, that kind of thing. So I'm really excited today. And one of the things too, and emphasis as we go through the presentation, your opening slide showed the ROI, and that's important.
Yes.
We look at ROR, return on relationships. And so the ROR drives the ROI. And we've seen it time and time again. And what's interesting to many of our clients is we can correlate the adapting patterns to the different financial reports, the balance sheet, the P&L on usually a quarterly basis, maybe whatever the KPI model is for our clients, and they're all a little bit different, but folks drive the results. And unless you have a wonderful patent that everyone's got to pay you money for, then it's going to, there's even people involved in that, if you will. But we're just excited to be here and anxious to answer Lori's questions because she will have some, in the book, and I got such a kick out of this when we had lunch the other day with you and Lynn. The book's got, you probably used, a pad and a half of Post-it notes? I share that picture.
It is, yeah. So yeah, that I've got all this categorized, and these tabs are within each chapter, and they're coded for certain reasons. But I will say this book is well used and well highlighted, and we definitely, our clients get the best of So this is what's great about it's not just Lori and Lynn saying, but we really do take each and every individual as uniquely as they are and help them to really strategize and to transition. So every bit of this is supporting our clients. So as crazy as this sounds, not only is it a learning tool for me personally, but it really does hold great value for our clients as well.
Well, it's the culmination of almost half a century of learning.
Wow.
Uh, every time we do a debrief, and you know this, Lori, you always learn something new.
Yes.
And I'm I love doing the debriefs. People give great feedback. Uh, every time someone has done a Forte, they get an email from us the next day saying, please rate the accuracy of your information. So we have this coming in from all over the world.
Uh-huh.
And it can be something as simple as a word that we start seeing enough frequency to that maybe that word, and we can then modify or update the context to meet the evolving things over time. And we all know things have evolved a little bit, in fact, rapidly in the last couple of years.
Right.
So it's a wonderful way to stay in touch. So our validation process is current as of this moment. It's not back in the 1920s and whatever. And that was one of my goals in the early days was how do we keep it fresh, relevant, and not once then done? Because it's
Applicable. It
yes,
continues to be applicable. And the beauty of it is because there is a benchmark and there are adapting, and then there are additional tools which we'll dive into in a bit. The ability to meet people where they are in their transformation journey, in their transitional journey, in their learning and development journey, that these tools give them that current adaptable language to play with, to go explore with, to go journey with, to go and to implement. And we always tell our clients, look at it like be a scientist, first be a sponge and take it all in, and let's talk about it, and then let's go be a scientist and go apply it, go experiment with it and play with it and see what happens, and let others know that you know what, you're going to try something different, and watch their curiosity peak, watch this whole dynamic, this what we call openness, right? We're firm believers that when we can get a team or two people or a group to get it to that open state, it's amazing the things that can be solved, right? And the work that can get
well,
done.
it all starts with the conversation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, it's not so much who you are, but it's how you adapt others in that moment and or over time. And as you mentioned, we have other tools we'll be talking about today that facilitate the interaction of individuals and teams, leaders and their team, the team with their leaders. I mean, it's a full circle, and
And
there's no getting around that.
even to the point where organizations or even the small business, that single entity small business, and they're looking to hire someone, and they're recruiting, and they're out there putting their job posting out there, and they think they're in the rat race of that. And the tool, help me out, who communication to hire, communication
Yes.
to hire is one of those additional tools that the value is great to be able to better align the talent and the behaviors and the communication styles that you need for your culture, for your workplace, so that you can have, you know, better dialogues, better performance, better productivity, all those things, that effectiveness in the workplace. I want to mention this, who also you talk about how trust and rapport and building trust and rapport is especially important because we're acknowledging and we commit to engaging in that type of behavior, trusting. And I'm a firm believer that we give trust, and trust is created and developed, and it is definitely highly contagious. So if I'm going to be open and trusting and I bring that to the table, others might not be as trusting because that's part of our personality, or we may be more skeptical than others. That's me, right? I bring that skepticality to the table. I don't even know if that's a word, to be honest, but
Sounds good to me.
yeah. So, but if I come to the table, even though I am skeptical and I know how to use that strength of skepticism now, that I come to the table open, I come to the table trusting that everybody's going to bring themselves to the table and bring their best ideas and their best expertise. It changes the ball game. The dialogue, the communication becomes highly intelligent. So talk about that and how that process, because of the data that comes in these reports, that again, really at any given time, throughout a period of time, becomes priceless to people with the ability to be effective with others.
Well, as we've mentioned, it always starts with a conversation. And what we're wanting to do is at the very beginning, let's obtain some respect and rapport.
Yeah.
And once that is solid, then that's how the trust you're talking about is going to grow. So we got to get that in place. And there's several tools that do that. One of which is, of course, you doing your own Forté. And the default is others at work. That could be leader at work. It could be team at work, direct reports at work. Many of our uh, high performers are very good at managing their boss, but not so good with their peers and direct reports, right? So they're now seeing the better ways to adapt to these different groups that may be communicating with. And that's the nice thing about Forté. It can be very situationally based, and that's the way life is. Who's in front of you right now, uh, and how you adapt best in that environment. You mentioned communicating to hire, and we look at that as how can we hire right the first time. Many
Right.
organizations can tell you who their top performers are in a certain position. Well, guess what? What are they doing differently? So we learn that. And that's one of the data points in building a profile model. The other is Lori gets two or three folks together, one who knows the job, one who's managed the job, someone doing the job, and individually, each of them complete the Forté profile model. It's a 30 question based, behavioral question based survey. And then we bring them together to share. Here was your answer. Say you answered a five, someone else answered a three. Well, you're not going to average that to a four. Each person is asked to explain why they chose what they chose. And it's amazing to me. I love doing these things because uh, it is an eye opener for everyone. And we may end up agreeing on the five, the three. Maybe it's going to be a four, but it's not. It's going to be a consensus after explanations are made, and it comes up a final survey. We put that into the system. It then generates a pattern to use for two things, either to look at the primary profile or it can be used to coach. Competency trumps everything. Forté would never be the sole decider of bringing somebody into the organization. You know, you've got the interviews, you've got the background checks, you've got many other elements. Forté is one of those tools. But the good news is we can hire it, we can coach it. The point is how do we help those B and C performers bump it up at least a notch? That's our
Mm-hmm.
job, and we
Mm-hmm.
take it very, very seriously.
And it's very powerful in that onboarding, like you said, that coaching piece. It's not just, the onboarding is critical. Those first 90 days are critical. It's like a baby, right? Those first
Right.
2,000 days are critical for an infant. And those first 90 days are critical for a new hire. And Forté truly can help them through that process because there's a lot going on there. And then after that, building into a development strategy and a development plan. That learning and development strategy truly does, this tool supports that. But going beyond the individual hoop, I think what's important, and going beyond just the, the higher onboarding, once an employee is embedded into an organization, and we've got them, working, now they're parts of teams, now they're part of the organization. Most employees I know are always looking at, what's my future, what does my future hold as
Yes.
well. So
Yes.
with this, there's, one of the other tools I love with Forté are the interaction reports. I also love the Team Pulse report. So talk a little bit about some of the, and as well the I360 report as well. So talk about these tools and how they are complementary and beneficial.
Well, you've just mentioned, as you well know, our most popular report, and that's the interaction reports.
Yeah, they are.
First of all, they're free. We'll just
Yeah.
start with that. But the important thing about them is, here's how I best adapt and communicate. Say let's just talk about the new hire. And,
Uh-huh.
rather than taking 18 months to get to know the person, here he is, here she is, right there. Uh, and you have an interaction report with them. They have one with you. And the last page of the interaction report are the other person's motivators and demotivators,
Mm.
and vice versa. So now the leader can sit down with this new team member day one, or maybe even before they start, and identify, here's my top 5 self motivators, 2 demotivators, and you share that with each other. Now I know exactly how to best adapt and help this person have that environment. And everybody's a bit different, even with the same pattern, but the intensity can be different. And the other piece that we've got here is, every 30 days, you've got your adapting update, which creates another opportunity to onboard the person, because they're learning. And of course, in the early days, they may not feel as open to say, hey, I really don't know what this does. But after that relationship gets built in a very short amount of time,
Yeah.
then we're able to have those conversations that help them become successful sooner. And we don't have a single client with the adapting updates. And after every 30 days for the first 90 days is the best practice, then say every 90 days thereafter, and then using the Team Pulse tool, which aggregates all this information. Here's the preferences of our team. Here's how the team's currently adapting in the most recent 30 days. Then here's how they're most likely coming across. And you share that with an upstream team, downstream team. You know how to hand off the work if you've got a downstream team. They also know how to hand it off as it moves through the process. So all we're doing is greasing the wheel, if you will. We don't have a single client that doesn't expect some type of either a business result, productivity result, patient satisfaction result. In fact, one of the things that we go for is, how do we get 13 months of productivity in a 12-month period? So Forté gets down to that level. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we can correlate it to the KPIs, correlate it to the financial statements, whatever, that's going to help the organization improve. Now, this is fighting very hard with the interaction reports to be the most popular report. And it's really raised its head in the most, I'd say, the last 6 months. And that's the I360. I stands for Informed 360. Because before you do a 360, which is a multi-rater, we all have our blind spots. There's certain competencies that are important for what you do. And so you, your leader, and your team actually rate you on these. And then it's aggregated. We bring it together and then do a debrief. And you're going to see, you may feel you have a 4 in this particular competency. Your team may say a 2. So what's my opportunity? To listen. The best communicator is the best listener. And so then how do I bring that up? We also have competencies to work on, and that's that is one of the things too in getting alignment between the leader and the subject of the 360 is a page that actually shows here's where your leader may feel you're strong in it or not, and you can have that alignment opportunity. So rather than 6 months down the road, I think I'm doing great, and my leader say, wait a second, that's not what I meant. 6 months have been wasted, Lori. We can get that satisfied very quickly. And you do the I360 about every 9 months or so, but it's always opposite an annual review if you're still doing annual reviews. And the reason is that gives them time to take the input, act on it, and then there can be a conversation with a reasonable amount of time that, okay, they have adapted accordingly. So what's our job? Forté is a French word that means one's strengths. It's to build the natural strengths that are there and move it forward in terms of how to best adapt and adapt to thrive, bottom line.
Absolutely, 100%. We agree. And one of the reasons why we love this tool, and we use this tool in conjunction with many others, but I will say this, Hoop, I love the fact that this focuses on strengths and motivators, not people's weaknesses, because we don't believe there are such thing as weaknesses. What most people call weaknesses, we call these are areas to be informed. These are areas to make better decisions around. These are areas to definitely understand if you're going to derail or not with. These are areas that you absolutely must manage well. And in order to manage these areas that could, in fact, become bumps in the road for you, you can minimize those greatly by focusing on strengths and motivators, and not only your own, right?
Yeah.
The reason for Forté is not just an individual development piece tool. It is also to really look at the whole dynamic of behavior in the organization through teams, through the total group, and really be able to make better decisions to better align people's strengths. We talk about many times with our clients, can you close your eyes and can you actually visualize an organization that is ideally functional in culture, meaning that when people are behaving and no one's looking, that people are truly focused and aligned and optimizing those strengths that create the value and the opportunity and the growth that you're seeking, and realizing collective results. And by the way, streamlining that stinking thing called strategy that we execute every day towards goals. How fun would that be? And clients go, Lori, that's way out there sometimes. And I said, is it? Or is it just real work? Is it the real work that needs to be done with developing people? Is it the Pareto rule of 80-20? Let's get 80% of the hard work done up front so that 20% can kind of shine and thrive, because we've done really good development work. We've done really good self-awareness, self-mastery work up front with these people that, by the way, are the number one asset in our organization, right?
No, that's totally right. And if the foundation's not strong, then the house is not going to stand.
Yes.
Got to wobble in the wind, and that's not productive.
So I want to back up just a little bit, because the tools are phenomenal. And again, we use them all the time with our clients, but I want you to even go further back into tone, voice, stance, language, culture, these things, the way in which we deliver communication, and how Forté, how communication intelligence truly, the more we know about this, the better we get at it. And it's amazing. Our grammar sometimes improves. It's just amazing how our presence, the way we dress, the way we present ourselves, being able to present in front of others, all of these things just naturally, organically are lifted up. They're enhanced, they're improved. So talk about that.
Well,
That's,
when
that
you
deep,
know your,
yeah,
well, when you know yourself,
yeah.
you know yourself. And Forte has 38 different master patterns. Uh, Competitors, 16, that's all they ever have. So the sensitivity is there, and it needed to be there
Mhm.
because we're not putting anybody in a box. We're giving them, here is the center point of your compass. And by every relationship you have, 360 degrees, whatever it may be, there's an opportunity to listen differently, to adapt differently. Uh, when I know I'm working with say, a very intense extrovert, I know up front to allow time for them to verbalize. You know,
Yes,
I'm a my primary strength's conformity. I'm a detail guy. And you're right. Sometimes I can come across as skeptical of something, but all I'm really saying is help me understand.
yes,
Once I get it, then I can become the advocate. But
yes.
if they didn't know that, and I try to say this clearly up front in any new opportunity or relationship, once we got that established and I understand how, their style is, then we're going to meet somewhere and maybe there's going to be some stuff clearly I would I would love to do and stuff maybe not so much that they would love to do. And so that's where we start the balance and the orchestra, if you will. And particularly you get to the team and understand, this person would do it better than me. So
Mhm.
how do we make that happen? Uh,
And
how
at
can
that
they shine?
point, when you get employees looking at and accepting, being in that state of acceptance that you're really the one that's better at it than I am.
Yes.
So let's really optimize this. Let's really make this incredibly effective. And by the way, I'm going to pick up these other things over here because that's where my strengths are. But if you do
Exactly.
this because you do it so well, we're going to be able to truly get this done probably ahead of schedule, under budget, and on time. Or,
Oh,
yeah.
well,
So it changes the ball game. It really does.
so many times the manager thinks no one can do it better than he can.
Ah,
Then are why is there a team? I
right.
mean,
And then
I mean,
we get the player manager, right?
oh yeah. And
And be
sometimes
right.
managers, frankly, are promoted because they're
Yeah.
very good at doing the job, not
And
so
they're
much
well liked.
managing it.
And I'm going to put in there, they're well liked by everybody.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
But
Yes.
this is their opportunity to really fly when
Yeah.
they learn to delegate appropriately. You
Talk
know,
about that.
uh,
Talk about how the Forte communication intelligence tools, because there are many, 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 and I'm looking back over a 40-year career, not just Harris Whitesell Consulting, many times where people were promoted or hired in because they were a good salesperson or they were a good operations person, and they get pulled in to lead a team of people with no leadership skills, competencies, abilities, never done it before, and now they're leading, or they get put into a VP, director, or executive position and never developed any of those competencies. And truly, this tool is foundational. Talk about that.
well, starting at the beginning,
Yeah.
shame on the recruiter for, not understanding this is going to be their first leadership role. So part of their onboarding would be get some leadership courses. Let's support you in this because we know you know how to do it.
Right.
Uh, we're hoping what you'll become is the multiplier of those things, but there's a way to do that, and the tendency would be on what you just described, where they're going to still continue to try to do it themselves instead
Right.
of teaching others. That's a natural tendency, particularly for your really high performers, high achievers, whatever it may be. But if they understand through the learning the leadership piece, the job of the leader is to share, to teach. I mean, lead means I'm helping others achieve not only the goal, but their goals, the company goals, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, yes, that happens. And I've been there. You have to, where you're coaching someone who really is not ready to do this.
Right.
And it's very, but once they understand it, and we're talking about here's how to get there, here's the steps, here's the courses, here's the whatever, and the companies endorse this because they know a lot. Uh, that's a game changer for them.
It is.
Otherwise, they're gonna tread water. Ultimately, you're going to see the high turnover because team members, if they don't feel valued or they're bored, they'll leave.
Yeah.
That's it, just that simple. So that's what we look for is what were the steps, what's the resume look like, what's their leadership experience, and even if this is the best we got, okay, how can we help them grow
And
and lead?
I want to say this too, there's so much to talk about when it comes to communication intelligence. Everybody that's out there, it is simply complex in many ways. And what I love about it is that socially, especially with social media, we sometimes have a lot of people out there who interpret characteristics, the true nature of characteristics when it comes to communication intelligence styles, when it comes to personality styles. And so the word dominant, the word introvert, extrovert, the word impatient versus patience, conformist versus nonconformist. The beauty of these is that it's all good. These are
That's
strengths.
right.
These are the beauty of this is that these are truly strengths. Yet in our socialness, in our humanness, we have morphed these words into being very catastrophic, very black and white, very distorted in nature, and it's become a problem. And I know when we do Fortes, the conversation comes up, the first time they see those words, sometimes they go, whoa, wait a second. Whoa. I'm not dominant. I'm not, I'm not an introvert. Introverts run from everything. Well, sure they do. They're not confrontational. They're thinkers. And we need you in the world. Absolutely. So talk about these, because the profile, the primary profile, the adapting profile, and the perceived profile are all built around these characteristics and their intensities. And the descriptors of them are quite profound. And as you dive into that, people open up. It's amazing in our coaching and in our facilitation. When we debrief reports, people, we ask them to just remain open and let's talk about what that really means. So dive into that.
Okay, those terms, they all tie back ultimately in many of the assessments that are out there to the four temperaments,
Yes.
430 BC. So uh, the good news is they've been validated over time, and you can have your different variations of that. Frankly, the choice for using those words was they are commonly understood across many languages. And so, we were used globally. We have a Korean translation and a Spanish translation. And you mentioned culture earlier. Working through the Korean translation took a bit longer than expected because in their culture, they're reluctant to criticize.
Correct.
And we brought in a translation company, Choice Translations out of Charlotte, to help us bridge that gap. And once we achieved trust, okay, we got trust.
Right.
Even with that culture piece there, we could have constructive conversations about what needed to be changed in the reports, the definitions, uh, the whole enchilada. And now we're just running through our partner. They're in Asia Pacific and South Korea, Pearsall Kelly, uh, many surveys. In fact, Yumi Jion, who's now the leader of those two entities in Pearsall Kelly, she contacted me. I'd sent her a copy of the book. We've been buddies for 12, 13 years, and have never met face to face. But uh, long story short, she says, I'm bringing all my leaders in. I want them to have a copy of the book. Can I have it? Like it was about 8, 9 days. And this is like a large order. And so, of course, McGraw-Hill could not fill it that quickly, but we had inventory here, and I said, we'll take care of it.
Uh-huh.
Uh, DHL got them there, Lori, in 5 days for $850. And then, of course, McGraw-Hill, or I'm sorry, Pearsall Kelly bought the books, but they just were thrilled to death with it. And so, but you learn the culture thing's so important, and we're whether it's a American, a U.S. company, North American, European, whatever it may be, we take the attitude we're going to create culture consciously. We want to. It's a conscious thing. It's how we do things around here, and particularly the onboarding process, is to have a clear explanation. This is the culture. This is what we do. You can go into some organizations and it's actually posted up on the wall behind the reception area, that kind of thing. But then I always ask people one on one, you guys doing that? And many times they say, well, kind of maybe. And and that's where we get to amp up primarily the understanding of what the culture is, and we get the leadership. They've got to walk the talk, or it's
Yeah.
not going to happen. And that's going to be how they communicate their message, their culture message across the organization, particularly the larger it is. So when you're mentioning that the culture piece and how we adapt, and we definitely everywhere we communicate, we're adapting.
Right.
No one has it their way all day, uh, and if you are, then you're probably all by yourself on an island somewhere,
Right.
and you're going to have your way all day. And thank you very much.
Right. Because it's not just what I prefer. It's not just what I tend to be. Because when I'm with you, Hoop, I've got to connect. I've got
That's
to
right.
create. I've got to develop this relationship, this ability to work with someone else who's, by the way, quite different than me, and
Yeah.
honor that and celebrate that. And by the way, instead of coming in to work, what I get, the feedback that we get, I'm going to go here, the feedback we get when we go through just a simple debrief on the benchmark. So this is the very first survey, right? The very first Forté intelligence survey. And you get through that debrief, and I'll often get an email a day or two, sometimes right away, but often it's a day or two later once it's kind of absorbed and they've kind of taken it in, because our debriefs are anywhere from an hour to 2 hours long.
Yes.
We stay in it with our client if we need to. And what's beautiful is they come back and in some way, shape, or form in the way they communicate, they'll say, wow, this was more than I ever imagined, or this was incredibly insightful. And I didn't know a lot of these things. I didn't realize that I had all this in me, yet I knew it was there, but I never really thought about how to optimize it. Or I never really thought about even just considering it for creating a different outcome. Right. And
Exactly.
And so you've got them thinking now. And then when you do the adapting, they've had that 30 days to play with the strategies. By the way, page 5, 6, 9. I mean, the whole thing's amazing, but 5, 6, and 9
Yeah.
are probably the power of the whole survey.
Yes.
And I really, truly believe bringing people, continuing to be able to coach them back into their preferences and tendencies, and then also how are they adapting? And talk about resilience. I'm getting into resiliency is where I'm going with this. And I really want you to mention this outcome of resiliency because we've committed. We understand. Two, we've committed to this. And three, we practice it, right? We play with it and we practice it. So talk about resiliency as the outcome.
Using predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics.
Mm-hmm.
That's been one of my strengths, is dealing with statistics and data and computers and stuff like that. That's why Forte was computerized and never was paper pencil. But you get into comparing word sets from the primary survey to the current adapting survey. It's called cluster analysis for those who want to write down the fancy term. And so we're able to measure current logic style, anything from feelings to facts, intuitive feelings to facts. And what that helps, when I understand the logic style, I see that Lori needs facts. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to get the facts, present them to her, and then step back and let her double check everything. Secondly, we measure stamina. Stamina, just think of that as it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, time to call it a day. Or it's 10 o'clock at night, you're cranking away getting things done. That's the stamina. The goals index, that is level of satisfaction with the current environment in that 30-day period. Same thing with the logic, same thing with the stamina, the goals, whatever, because we're updating all of this every 30 days. When you correlate the current stamina and the goals index, you have resiliency. And so if we saw stamina dropping and the goals index dropping, that's an early indicator of burnout. If we see very high stamina meeting few goals, if any, that's someone who's rusting out, and we can lose good people either way.
Right.
So Forte is measuring itself as well as whatever the client KPIs are. And we trend out all this information over time on pages 12 and 13. So we have trends. This is data news people can use. And so we go through that process of, after 3 adapting updates, we've got trends. To that point, we've got a data point, we've got a line, now we have a trend. And that's where we get into the very serious performance coaching, where we can say, okay, consistently, you are having a much higher sense of urgency or impatience than people are picking up on. So be sure and share dates and deadlines. You'll get what you need sooner. Again, the whole idea is how do we amp up productivity, but not at the expense of resiliency. And few goals, if any, doesn't mean they have few on their plate. It means their plate is flowing over. There's a lot of people, Lorraine, and you know this, that have a hard time saying no. So it just keeps stacking up. Well, if my leader sees that, particularly there's a particular strength, patience, we prefer to avoid conflict. Knowing that, then I'm going to be looking at what's on the plate and helping them prioritize things. Because that's really all few goals, if any, is saying is what do we need to reprioritize? And the leader needs to get right in the middle of that, particularly with someone who's has a hard time saying no. And that's how we're getting that respect and rapport. My leader comes to me and says, Hoop, wait a second, I'm seeing these trends, seeing some stamina dropping, goals index dropping. Let's sit down and just reprioritize what's on your list because I want to stay ahead of this. And that just, at that point, you think that employee's going to think about leaving? No, to think about, I cannot believe the sensitivity that I've just been shown. Because most likely, all that's on the plate is not that big a deal. And if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
That's right.
It's really that simple. So that's how we take the information and, again, using it with page 9, over time, we start trying to get the current adapting and the perceiver patterns very close together. We're not worried about those matching the benchmark because this is a 30-day window. But if what I'm feeling is being perceived, I'm most likely getting it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's not being perceived, that's that's up to me. And that's what page 9 does is it starts giving you, here are the steps to take. You'll paraphrase this in your conversation with your leader, with your team members. If it's a customer, even more so, because if they're not getting your message, you probably aren't delivering what the customer expects. So
Mm-hmm.
you can use it outside the organization, inside the organization. And I can't help but mention this, Lori. We have so many clients who said, I'd really like to do this with my spouse.
Right.
And so it can be how my spouse expects me to act at home.
Right.
Both of them would fill that out. But Lori, we offer no guarantees in that environment. But the information's there, and yes, I've done debriefs for couples, and it's always a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but they need to understand that they both need to be adapting to each other.
And I
Um,
will say this, I want to add this. It's something that Lynn, by the way, everybody, Lynn is managing partner with me of Harris Whitesell Consulting. We keep mentioning her. She's on the back side of our podcast today doing the comments and everything else. So but Lynn always says, assume positive intent. So intention
yes,
plays out. Intention plays out. And if we don't begin with it, we've got to have that intention. It doesn't matter if you're working with your family with this tool. It doesn't matter if you're working on just self-improvement, self-awareness, and self-mastery. It doesn't matter if you're working in a team environment and you're working to build teams, right? It is about intention. And when people go to work, when people take a job, they truly do come in with the best of intentions. For the most part, very rarely do we find that evil person who's going to do damage.
right.
Yeah, so we assume positive intent. And that's, in my opinion, I'm looking at your book right now, and
Mhm.
you've keep me inspired, honestly, with this conversation. Being your best means starting with great intention.
Yes,
Gratitude absolutely plays into this, and having great intention, because with intention, we're better able to adapt. And then bringing your best. I love that you shift it from being my best to bringing my best.
yes,
And then you go into the 10 communication intelligence essentials. So I think we've talked a lot about being your best, and that is what is communication intelligence, the uniqueness of my strengths, intentionally adapting and motivating me, what's motivating me. And maybe we could dive into motivation more, because motivation eventually does change over, and it also evolves. However, I love when you talked about the team pulse earlier and the interactions that motivation does matter, and it does evolve over time. But again, you guys, talking about communication intelligence is deep and wide, and it really is highly valuable. So you can see how we get excited here talking about this topic. I want to dive into this piece of, with bringing your best, it's all about how you're communicating and working with others, who's on your team and understanding them, and then how do you adapt and how do you optimize that, their strengths, their motivators. But you talk very specifically, Hoop, in this book. There are 10 communication intelligence essentials. Dive into those and that process of those.
Well, a lot of it is going to center around understanding you're going to bring your best,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
But hopefully everybody else is. And if you're the leader and they're not, then how do you help them do that? So
Mhm.
there's essential things that you can do, particularly listen, and more than anything else, you've got to understand that they're going to be different, and they come back with a very diverse background, where they grew up, their family, uh, and just within, say, let's just leave it at the family right there, Lori. Brothers and sisters are
Right.
not alike.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Uh, and you get into study genetics and stuff like that, which I loved in college, but and where a lot of these traits come from generations prior, if you will. Uh, and it's never the same twice. Even when we're working with identical twins and they get their fortes and they're different, they've known this all their life. And but everyone dresses them the same. They think they're the same. They all this stuff. No, they're not.
They're
And
very,
so part of this essential piece is to recognize this, that
yeah.
it's not you, it's others. And was there any of those that particularly jumped out at you, Lori? I know we're starting to get short on time, and
Uh-huh.
uh,
We are. We are. Well, for me, they're all very important. I will say this, being able to, there's a, I'm thinking about today and I'm thinking about workplaces, and there's always conflict in the workplace, always.
mhm,
And how, getting to that dialogue where people can bring their best to the table. So this piece on communicating with challenging people. Now, not I'm going to say this out loud, and people can have feedback on it. Communicating with challenging people is a misnomer in a sense. Because if I'm communicating with challenging people, I'm the one that's challenged.
right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that piece, I really want to shift the mindset with that, because a lot of people we're human, and the natural tendency is to fight, flight, freeze, faint, that, to survive. I get it. The natural tendency of the human is to, protect myself. However, not at the cost of labeling, shaming, blaming, distorting someone else. And so, if in fact I'm struggling in the conversation, it's me, not them. You said that earlier. It's
Mhm.
me. And so communicating with challenging people, really, I want people to dive into that. I want people to really think about that. And in our coaching, I really emphasize when they bring what I call situations or circumstances, I try to steer them away from issues or problems, because issues and problems often, spiral down into the rabbit hole of dysfunction. So I try very hard to keep people looking at things as, you know, truly solvable. This is something that I can open up to, figure out, and work on, as well as collaborate with others to make it the best. So that one, number 5, communicating with challenging people, probably is something that I come across a lot with individual coaching, with some of the talent management strategy programs we've got running, with development, I'm trying to think of all the different things that we do, team building, all these things, who it comes out.
Well, this is particularly one of the things, the challenging people piece. That's where you really need to be listening between the lines. And I say listening because you may be in that challenging situation. And if you're trying to think of the answer before the question is finished, you've lost. Uh, and you sit back, and before long, if you do it right, the challenging person begins, oh, they were listening to me. Uh, and it can even change their affect. I've particularly, let's just take an example, a
Uh-huh.
dominant introvert,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
okay, with an extrovert. Okay, the
Yes.
extrovert talks too much, the introvert doesn't talk enough, but the dominant introvert can come across very brusque and all those things. So the extrovert thinks they don't like me.
Oh,
No, it's not it at all. It's just fact, the dominant introvert is the originator of ideas, good
yes.
ideas.
Yes.
And we extroverts steal the idea and claim it for our own, but that's another story. So knowing that, okay, I'm going to allow some time for my extrovert teammate to express himself, but I'm not going, and then the extrovert saying, I'm going to be talking in terms of bullets, not paragraphs. Game changer. That's the respect and rapport, and that's what
Mhm.
we're trying to get at, in particularly with the challenging relationships.
And
How,
and another thing that comes to mind in this is the ambivert. And we measure ambiversion with communication intelligence. So really quick speak to that. And then we're going to have to wrap up because been a blink of an eye. So talk about ambiversion as well, because that is one of those conflicting and challenging.
this was added to the Forte process back in the early 90s when we began, after a number of debriefs, realizing that in that, well, for those of you who haven't done a Forte, I hope you do it soon, but you'll
Use
see
the
the scale.
best.
Yeah, they, you know how to get hold, Lori. And so the scale is it Forte's, it's a bell curve, it's all this kind of stuff, but 0 to 36 above the line, 0 to 36 below. Within that range of 7 above the line to 7 below, that's ambiversion. And what we would learn from the debriefs, people would say, you know, I can be drawn to others some of the time. Other times I just want to close my door and get my job done. Where the
Right.
extrovert's always looking outside themselves. The introvert, one-on-one's fine with me all the time. I happen to be a 7 extrovert ambivert. Okay. So what we also learned, we ambiverts sometimes can be seen as being moody. Now I
Right.
can't imagine that I'd ever be seen as being moody, but it's true. It's been confirmed by my wife, Hope. And the good news is uh, she's got a little bit of that herself. So we understand, and when you understand ambiversion, it's not that you're being dismissed. It's what, guess what? Lori just reminded me of something I need to do. I could leave that conversation without even saying, "Hey, thank you very much." I just go do it, close my door, let's get it done, get it back
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, what did I just say that upset Hoop? Nothing. You helped me. But that's the ambiversion piece. And particularly, we have a team of ambiverts. That's a real opportunity to change their whole thinking about how the work environment is. And it really adds to that respect piece of the respect and rapport. Because no ambivert it's not an intentional thing. It's just you move so easy, just that flexibility. That said, the other three dimensions, 3 above the line to 3 below the line, that's the flexible area for them. So someone might be a 2 non-dominant, but guess what? Situationally, they could bump it up to dominance. Just
Mm-hmm.
that flexibility piece, and knowing that's very helpful versus someone who's a 28 extrovert, 27, nonconformist. A little bit more different for them to say adapt to introversion or conformity. So
And then
intensity matters.
it does. It absolutely does. And then ultimately, this truly is all about well-being, because when we can be more resilient, when we are better communicators, we have better resiliency, we adapt well. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen, it does impact our well-being. Bottom line, we can minimize those stressors in the world, and we truly can find ways to optimize strengths and optimize those motivators and communicate better, we become less stressed, and we're definitely allowing this skeletal skinned thing that we are morphed in, to operate better for us. And I can't thank you enough, who your work, your life work, this has been your life's work.
Yeah.
And you've spent your lifetime doing this, definitely, or at least your adult lifetime, probably inspired by much of your youth, I'm sure. And we didn't dive into any of that, but that's okay. That's for another conversation. But I will say, everyone, Hoop's recent book, Communication Intelligence, it is on Amazon. I know in our comments, Lynn has posted a link for you to be able to purchase from Amazon. So that is out there. And please click on that link and get yourself a copy. Once you've read the book, give Lynn and I a call. We'll be happy to come
Yes.
in and work with you and work on developing communications in your organization at this level. and definitely take a peek at your talent management strategies and how they're complementing, how communication intelligence can complement this. But Hoop, I will say it's always a joy and a pleasure to partner with you and to be your friend, to be in partnership as far as business is concerned. I am grateful for the introductions to you. I'm grateful for the opportunity for these years of collaborating with you on numerous things over the past few years. And we, Lynn and I'll speak on behalf of both of us, continue to look forward to the many opportunities and endeavors that are in the future. And in current state, let's rock on. Or as you always say, I think onward and upward. Is that right? Onward and upward.
Onward and always upward.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Hoop, do you have any last minute thoughts or statements that you want to make?
We are just honored to work with you all, and thank you very much for your time. When McGraw-Hill contacted me to write the book, I never thought it'd take a year and a half, but there's a lot there. I dusted off brain cells I didn't even know I had. So do enjoy it, and thank you so much again, Lori and Lynn. And I'm just looking forward to our journey as it continues to evolve. Always onward and upward.
Always.
Always. Okay.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Maximize Excellence. Visit our events page on our website for details on upcoming podcasts, and visit our YouTube channel to listen to past episodes. And remember to ask yourself at the end of each day, did I do my best to maximize excellence today?